Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's ASA webinar, Tech-Enabled Homes Enhancing Independence in Aging, which is part of the Empowering Professionals in Aging series presented by Homestead Incorporated. We'll be getting started shortly, but before we do, I just wanted to point out a few features. The slides for today's presentation are available under the tab on your screen labeled Resources. And under the tab labeled CE Application, that's where you can find information on how to obtain continuing education credit for this event. Please note that you will have 60 days to complete a continuing education application, and it may take up to 30 days from the date of your application in order for us to process and issue your continuing education credit. If you're not logged in directly to this webinar, that is, if you're watching as part of a group or did not log in using an individual confirmation URL, you are not eligible to apply for continuing education credit because we'd have no way to track your online attendance. If you'd like to receive CE credit, but you're not registered in that way, please be sure you log in using a confirmation URL that you had received after registering individually. If you have questions during the presentation, please send those anytime using the questions box, and we'll save about 10 or 15 minutes of today's program to get to those. And now I'd like to welcome today's presenter, Dr. Lakelyn Hogan. Lakelyn is a gerontologist and caregiver advocate at the global headquarters of Homestead. Lakelyn works to educate professionals in aging, families, and communities on the unique challenges that older adults face and the resources available to help them thrive. Lakelyn earned her PhD in gerontology from the University of Nebraska, Omaha. Lakelyn, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Leanne. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited to talk to you today about tech-enabled homes. Technology really is affecting all areas of our lives and can be a benefit to us in so many ways. And more, we often use technology in our homes for convenience, safety, and entertainment. And as individuals consider options for care and support as they age, it's important to understand how technology can play a role. Research shows us that about 90% of people prefer to age in place. That's where they want to be. They want to stay at home as long as possible. So leveraging technology may help to make that a reality for people. So I'm glad again that you've joined this webinar to learn about ways to create a tech-enabled home that can enhance independence and support an individual's desire to age in place. So here are the objectives today for the webinar. First, we're going to talk about some of the uses of modern technology. There's different categories of technology, so we're going to talk through some of that. Then we're going to talk about how we can combine different types of technology to create an affordable tech-enabled home. You know, sometimes when you think of tech-enabled homes, you think of super high-tech, very expensive, but really there's a lot of simple, affordable things we can do to make the home safer, make it more conducive to aging in place, and so we'll talk through some of those. And then also to talk about how it is fairly convenient. We live in a day and age of Amazon and delivery of items right to our doorstep, and so much of it is easy to order and easy to install. And then also we'll talk about how we can make it a goal of using this technology as a way to enhance independence. So we're first going to talk about some of the more the uses of some of the modern technology that we have available to us. Sometimes technology can seem overwhelming, especially for older adults. And I think that there's a misconception out there that older adults are resistant to technology, they're not open to it, which might be true for some people, but more and more older adults are accepting of technology, they're using it more in their day-to-day lives. So we want to, at least for this webinar, I hope that I kind of demystify that, make it less daunting, and make it more accessible, because it really is, I think, more accessible than people think and realize. So we talk about the uses of technology. Technology is generally created to solve a problem. much of the technology that's coming out, especially in the aging space, is working to address a specific issue. It's often trying to help keep older adults at home longer, again, where the majority of people want to be. It may also be aimed at relieving the burden on a caregiver or care partner. The caregiver often takes on most or many responsibilities as it relates to their aging loved one in their care, so sometimes technology is created to help with those types of responsibilities. And tech can also provide peace of mind for family members or family caregivers. And then there's also a focus on restoring or maintaining independence for aging adults. But we also know that there can be challenges to the adoption and use of technology. And so there's some things that are important to consider, especially for those working in the aging space. And the first is availability. Is the individual technology that you're considering, is it available to the masses? Is the product consumer ready? Is it available for individual sale? At Home Instead, we're often approached by companies with new technologies that really are only available as a prototype, or they're wanting to pilot the technology before they go to market. So sometimes you might come across the technology, but it might not be available to the masses. And then there are also some technologies that are focused more so on senior living facilities and really helping older adults at a larger scale than they are the individual in their home. So one of these examples is a great or an interesting product that's come to market called Safely You, and it uses artificial intelligence enabled video recordings in facilities. So these video recordings utilize artificial intelligence and data collection to reduce the residents' time on the ground if they've fallen. But again, that is just for use in a residential care facility. You can't get that type of technology yet in the home, at least from this organization. So while this technology is solving a problem of fall prevention or response to falls, it's not available for individual use, not direct to consumer. We also need to consider the privacy of older adults. I think that's always a big concern when we talk about any sort of technology or online use. So privacy, not only from data and security perspective, but also, how do we maintain their dignity and their privacy of their personal space? Often adult children want to introduce technology like video cameras or remote monitoring sensors, but their parents don't want these things in the home. They don't want to be monitored, especially I've heard several older adults say, I don't want my kids to know what I'm doing every minute of every day. I want my privacy. And as an adult, I like my privacy as well, even within my own home. So I think those are really important things to consider, certainly a challenge. And then there's also the practical use consideration. How efficient is the technology? If it's really complicated to use and requires a lot of steps, an older adult might not be as open to adopting the technology. Also, who will install the technology? Will tech support be provided? There's often not enough adequate tech support for these various types of technology, and adult children end up becoming the tech support. And oftentimes these adult children are working, they have families of their own, they might not have the time or the patience to work with their loved one to help them really understand how to use the products. And sometimes we find at Home Instead our professional caregivers become a little bit of this tech support and help older adults kind of adopt to some new technologies in their home. But again, it's important to think through the practical use of the product. And a lot of times it's important to evaluate the balance between using this technology and the peace of mind and the cost, and also just making sure that the technology is being used and to support the older adult, that they have all the support that they need around it, and we need to make sure that kind of is in balance with the cost and the time and attention that the family has to devote to helping the older adult. utilize the technology. Because at the end of the day, we really don't want this technology to just be collecting dust on a shelf. More times than not, I've seen, an iPad in the living room under a stack of books when I walk into an older adult's home. And so, you don't want that to happen, to introduce a piece of technology into the home and just see it collecting dust. And I recently read a great article in the CSA Journal written by Wesley Chang. He's a kind of well-known tech expert in this space. The article is called How Technologies Help Support a Meaningful Life for Older Adults. Great article. I encourage you to read that in the CSA Journal. His article talks about how technology can help support meaning and a sense of purpose for older adults, and he kind of breaks it down into 3 categories that I really liked: control, connection, and contribution. And he argues that it might be helpful to consider these kind of perspectives when looking at various technologies to introduce into the life of an older adult. So first, control. Older adults often want to have control and independence in their lives. They want autonomy. They want to be able to manage their own household. They want to be able to remain at home as long as possible. So when you're trying to introduce technology, you might look at it from that aspect of control. Is the technology helping the person maintain that sense of control, maintain their independence? That might be kind of a way to convince the older adult to adopt the technology or help them to understand that it can help them maintain some control. The other one was connection. As human beings, we all long for connection. I think over the past couple of years with the pandemic, we've realized how much we all need connection. And technology can be a way to enhance connection with others. We know it will never fully replace that face-to-face or in-person connection, but it can help foster connection. So that might be another consideration point when introducing technology into the home. Is it helping the person stay connected? And then that final one that Mr. Chang suggests is contribution. People want to feel like they're contributing something to society, that they can give back. So does the technology provide an outlet to do so? Maybe it's a tablet where the older adult can FaceTime and read books to their grandchildren, gives them meaning and purpose. And maybe the technology allows them to, stay connected to some of the activities that they really enjoy. Maybe it gives them some sort of outlet for again, that contribution, connecting to others and making sure that they feel like they're contributing to society. And also change. I'll add that as another challenge. I know someone wrote in the comments, a lot of older adults are also afraid of change, and that is so true. And sometimes the pace of change within the world of technology can be a little intimidating. So it's really important that we address these concerns. I mentioned already that privacy is a common concern, and the cybersecurity enactment of 2014 really was enacted to provide an ongoing public-private partnership to improve cybersecurity, strengthen research and development in this area, and also provide public education and preparedness. And so really, when we talk about privacy now, I don't know about you, but every time I visit a website, there's a little pop-up that says, do you accept the sharing of cookies? I probably need to read the fine print. I don't always quite understand what I'm accepting, but that's a sign that more and more companies are trying to do their due diligence to be transparent about privacy-related issues. And there are some technologies that really address privacy and security, which we'll talk about throughout the presentation. Another concern is that keeping up with the changes in technology. With the pace of change, it might be overwhelming and intimidating, but there's a growing number of online resources that brings technology to older adults and helps them to really understand it and teaches them how to use it. There's a program called OATS, like the oats that you would put in oatmeal, OATS. It's an organization. I'll share the resource at the very end of the presentation, but they've partnered with various organizations, one of them being AARP, to offer free videos and resources for learning technology skills and getting better acquainted with technology. So sometimes it just takes a little education. My grandparents are a great example of this. They are very tech savvy for being in their early to mid 80s. They wanted an iPad and a Mac Apple computer. And so we all thought, oh gosh, how are they going to learn how to use this? They both were worked and used computers throughout their entire careers, but a Mac was kind of a newer computer, a totally different style than an HP that they were used to. But they set up lessons for themselves at the Apple store, and they had very patient Apple employees that really worked with them to teach them how to utilize the technology. And now they email all the time. They're doing Zoom Bible studies during the pandemic with their church friends. They really have leaned in to all of the great technology that those couple products provide them. But again, they had to seek out that education and learning. And I know in my local community, there is an effort to provide more education and outreach. I know the area agencies on aging often have technology-related courses. And then in my community specifically, we have a great technology library. It's called Do Space, and it's open to the public with free access to the latest software and devices, and they have a variety of classes for people of all ages, some of them specific to older adults to help them understand technology. So I think that there are more and more options for helping people to understand, especially the aging population, helping them understand technology and be a little more comfortable using it. Also, the style of technology can sometimes be a concern. I know so many older adults that do not wear their personal emergency response system, the PERS pendant, the kind of necklace with the button. If they fall, they can push it. A lot of older adults I know, they don't want to wear that in public because it's clunky. It makes them feel like they're wearing a sign to the world saying, I'm a fall risk, I'm old. And so we see sometimes style as a cause for concern as to why people don't want to adopt technology. But what's neat is we're seeing more sleek devices coming out, a little more fashionable options. And many people that are aging are wearing Apple Watches or the Galaxy Watch. And some of the newer versions can kind of detect some falls. And so it can be used sometimes as a substitute for a PERS device. But they're more open to wearing them because they see younger people wearing them. They are seen as being cool. And Best Buy also has a Lively program that offers more stylish versions of PERS devices. They also have more sleek versions of smartphones or flip phones that have the bigger buttons and that sort of thing. So I think that technology and the people that are creating it, they're looking at the design and thinking, how can we make it more appealing to the aging population? And then one final concern I think that we always have to bring up when we talk about technology is so much of it is connected to the internet, connected to Wi-Fi. And we do have to talk through that, a lot of people still do not have access to broadband. One of the webinars that my colleague April Ibarra did just a couple months ago, the role of technology in aging, I know it's still available out there. You can go check it out. But April talked with expert Lori Orlov, and they talked about how only 58% of Americans over the age of 65 have a wireline broadband internet service at home, and that's compared to 73% of the general adult population. So really, just over half of older adults have connection to internet, and 34% of those with internet say that they have little to no confidence with using electronic devices online. So there still is that barrier of having access to the internet and being confident interacting with these various types of technology. So now that we've addressed the concerns, I'm going to talk about some of the more affordable and accessible options for technology today. with so much technology at our fingertips, for many, they're finding it to be more accessible. They're finding more affordable options. And I think, again, it's easier than ever. You're able to search for just about anything on the internet and get it delivered to your door. But I think what can be challenging is knowing, what products are legitimate. Reading reviews can be helpful. So I'm going to go through some technologies today. I will say, I've seen some of these products, I've used some of them, but I would suggest that you do your research, you do your due diligence whenever you're looking to utilize a new type of technology. So one category of technology that is becoming more and more popular is wearable technology. AARP found that 20% of adults 70 and older own a wearable technology. They also found about 77% of older adults 70 plus own a smartphone. And I think that's an encouraging statistic because a lot of these wearables are attached to a smartphone, or connected Bluetooth to a smartphone. If we know an older adult has a smartphone, it might make them more open to engaging with some of these wearables. Hearables are one type of wearable. The wording here is getting me a little tripped up, but hearables are a type of wearable that provides some support to those with hearing loss. I will say this is not a substitute for hearing aids. I know hearing aids have to be approved by the FDA, and so these aren't necessarily those, but we know that older adults a lot of times are so resistant to wearing hearing aids. There's still such a stigma around it. Even though hearing aids are becoming more and more discreet, oftentimes people don't want to wear them. Again, it's a sign that they're getting older. But there are alternatives that maybe could help bridge the gap and get them more comfortable with a hearing aid down the road. And so these hearables like AirPods, while AirPods are not hearing aids, the newer version has a hearing assessment that the older adult does on their smartphone, and then based on that hearing assessment, it helps to customize the audio settings on their AirPods. So that can be helpful. Also, Wear and Hear is a company that helps seniors find hearing solutions. And so if you go to their website, you'll see various hearing solutions. And I will tell you, they're not very sleek like a lot of the hearing aids. They're much more visible, but I think that they kind of look cool. Again, that cool factor sometimes is a way to encourage a person to utilize these types of technology. Smartwatches are also sleek and discreet. I've mentioned them already, but they can help keep track of a number of health-related monitoring. And some of the newer options also, again, serve as kind of a PERS device. It can detect a fall, probably not as accurately as a PERS device, but again, might be better than nothing. And smartphone apps like the Apple Health app can help track the gait of a person's walk and might help to provide some insights on kind of a fall risk. So if a person's gait is off, they might be more at risk for falls. But it really is a fine line when you use these types of wearables and trackers, because we don't want to get too caught up in the data and too caught up in preventing the falls that it doesn't hinder the person from being active. I think that is a challenge that we face even with those traditional PERS devices. We don't want older adults to be so afraid of falling that they stop being active, because we know that as soon as an older adult stops being active, they lose, muscle in their legs and their strength, and it can also lead to falls. Also, sleep trackers and medical-grade wearables can provide additional insights into health status and also can help to monitor and detect potential health concerns. And they're starting to make, again, these things very sleek, barely detectable. You can see on the screen there's a ring now that can help provide some of that monitoring of various things. And then there are also disease-specific apps One example being Tide Pool that helps with diabetes management. So again, there's a lot of technology coming out into the space. This is just kind of glosses the surface of what's available in the wearable space. Again, most of them are working to address specific problems within the aging population. And then we see another category of home technology. People have that desire to age in place, to live at home as long as possible, and technology can help remind, guide, and aid older adults through as they are going about their environment and living at home. And there are many affordable, accessible, and stylish options to make the home more comfortable and safer for older adults. So one of which being lighting, motion lighting, bedside lighting are being used for fall prevention. And a lot of that lighting is easily installed. You don't really have to have too much involved to set those up within the home. Video doorbells, security cameras, alarm systems can help provide safety and peace of mind for the older adult and their family members. And then also things like touchscreen locks can help to allow or control who is allowed in and out of the home. And we'll be talking about these technologies in a little more detail in just a bit. But I do want to walk through some examples of how technology can help maintain an older adult's independence at home. Because again, we know that independence is something that we all, I think as Americans especially, hold dear. I remember from being a small child, I couldn't wait to grow up and to have my own car and to get my driver's license so I could independently drive myself. And we have those kind of milestones in our life of independence that we really truly value. And so if we can help older adults hang on to that into their later portion of life, that is very valuable to them, and technology can help to do that. So I'm going to walk through a few case studies. I thought about different ways to lay out this webinar, and I thought, it could be fun to put forth a scenario of an older adult and then look at how technology could be utilized to help enhance that person's independence. So I'm going to talk through Sue, Larry, and Roy's situations, and we can then think through, after I present their situations, some technologies that might be helpful to them, again, to help them maintain their independence. So first we have Sue. Sue is 82 years old and she lives alone. Her hearing has started to decline, and she frequently asks for people to repeat themselves. Her family also has noticed that she's not getting together with friends as often as she has liked to, likely because she's hard of hearing, and when she's together with them, she can't always understand what they're saying. And so the family is kind of a heightened concern, and Sue is very resistant to the idea of any sort of hearing aid. She won't even look into them, and the family has approached the topic several times. So how can we use technology to enhance Sue's life, now that you know a little bit more about Sue? Well, we could suggest a few things. The family could look into hearables to amplify sounds nearby to support her with her hearing loss. Again, some mainstream brands are making these types of devices now, like Apple. I think Amazon has a version of them. There's the Galaxy. Google has a version of them. These devices can range anywhere from $100 to up to $300, but it might be, again, kind of bridging that gap between no device that's aiding Sue with hearing to maybe down the road opening up the door to a conversation around hearing aids. So we could suggest some hearables to Sue and to her family. And then the family could also look into options for video chats instead of phone calls. If Sue is having a hard time hearing people on the phone, a video chat can provide her with the freedom to control the volume, can also help her possibly read lips easier. I don't know about you, but with masks, I found myself having trouble sometimes hearing people because I forgot how much I rely on reading people's lips when I'm communicating. And so some of these video chats are kind of free apps you can download, like Skype or FaceTime or Google Hangout. But there are also options like the Amazon Echo Show, which is featured here on this slide, that shows a picture that the person is talking to. It's not a smartphone, but it sits on the countertop and allows for that video connection. And you can, and also, of course, iPads and tablet devices are a great way to utilize those video chats. But often you need Wi-Fi for all of those options for video chatting. There's also another company called GrandPad that has a senior-friendly tablet that has a monthly subscription for cellular data, so it doesn't require Wi-Fi, but the monthly subscription has that cellular data that allows the person to connect through that GrandPad device, whether it's video calls, phone calls, and so forth. So there are some options out there. Again, Sue's family could try this. And next we have Larry. So Larry's wife recently passed away, and now he is living alone at their home. He has a heart condition, and if his heart rate falls below 60 BPMs, then his health might be at risk. Also, if he experiences rapid weight gain, he needs to alert his medical professionals right away. The family needs to get in touch with his doctors. And his adult children are nervous about him continuing to live at home and managing his condition. He relied on his wife quite a bit in the management of his condition. And they're trying to encourage him to move in with the oldest adult child, but he is insistent on living at home for now. So how could we utilize technology in this situation to help Larry maintain his independence, but also give peace of mind to his family members? So we could recommend something like a smartwatch to monitor his heart rate and other things such as his activity levels, his sleep, and his respirations. It could alert people with possible health concerns, so the family could, set it up in a way that if the heart rate dips below a certain point or spikes, that a family member gets a notice. There are apps like the Apple Health app, Cardiogram, and then also Lively provides options to share this type of information with family members or caregivers. And smartwatches range anywhere from, a couple $100 up to $1,000. But again, it might be a worthwhile investment in Larry's case to help monitor his heart rate. And they also could purchase a smart scale for Larry to weigh himself on every day, and that daily weight could be shared with his adult children. Maybe one of the children is the primary caregiver, and then they could track patterns in his weight. And again, they could set up alerts to alert them if his weight goes above a certain amount. So there are a variety of scales out there. They range anywhere from $40 to $50 up to $100. But again, this could be a way that the family could help kind of monitor Larry's condition, but provide him that independence that he wants and that he needs. And then finally, we have Roy. So Roy is in the early stages of dementia. He's lived in the same house for 40 years. He still drives at this point, and he always takes a nightly walk after dinner. A few times in the last week, Roy has been getting turned around on his nightly walk, and at times have been unable to find his way home. Luckily, he has really friendly neighbors who have helped guide him in the right direction, but his kids are worried about his safety. So what are some technology solutions that we could offer to Roy's family in this situation? There are some great technologies coming out in kind of the GPS and the tracking space. Dementia zone trackers can be used on a smartwatch with apps like Boundary Care, and a more traditional physical device that can attach the person's clothing or to be placed in a person's shoe. Some of those are Angel Sense, iTrack, and Smart Soul. These devices really range in price, anywhere from $100 up to $300. Sometimes there is a free version of the app, but a premium upgrade with a cost, a monthly cost. Some of the GPS tracking devices have a monthly cost associated with them. And then for Roy's vehicle, the family could look into vehicle GPS devices that plug into the diagnostic port of the vehicle, and then this can be connected to a smartphone. It has a GPS tracker in it, can provide his location in real time. So those range anywhere from $15 to $50, and those are a couple options. Another simple one, if he has a smartphone, is just to ensure that his location on his smartphone is shared with his adult children and that his home address is programmed into his GPS already. So those are some simple things, some ways that the families could utilize technology to help out Roy and Larry and Sue in these situations. And then we have more of those home technologies. So the examples I just shared were more in that wearable technology space. But again, utilizing technology in the home can bring peace of mind to family members, can provide some safety elements for aging adults, help to maintain their independence, and so forth. Again, sometimes there's misconceptions around tech-enabled homes. You might think back to, what you've seen in the movies. I feel like every James Bond movie has a really high-tech house that has, buttons you can push that open secret doors and all of that. That's not necessarily what we're talking about here. It's not an extensive home makeover. It doesn't require, control panels everywhere. That's not the type of tech-enabled homes I'm talking about today. In reality, it really doesn't have to be complex. Even at my house, my fiance, he loves technology, and we have, pretty much everything controlled by apps in our house. All of the light bulbs in our house are controlled by an app. Our temperature on our thermostat and our humidifier. We have a doorbell with a camera. We have security cameras in our garage. So we have all sorts of things. And if you were to walk into my house, you probably wouldn't think, wow, this is a tech-enabled home. But if you wanted to try to turn on a light, you would be sorely disappointed and confused. I'm still getting used to all of the tech in the home at times. But again, it doesn't have to be flashy and showy. It can be pretty simple. We can implement simple technology enhancements in the home. So I have a few more case studies here that we can go through. Mabel, Jay, and Kathy to talk through how we could just enhance some technology in their homes to help them maintain their independence. So let's start with Mabel. Mabel's been diagnosed with MCI, but she can still engage in her own ADL and IADLs. She's lived in the same house for over 30 years, but all of her adult children have moved out of state. And since her adult children are long-distance caregivers, they are constantly worried about her. And so what type of technology equipment or technology could be equipped in the home of Mabel to help provide peace of mind, but yet still give her some independence? So first, they could look into sensor systems. These sensor systems could be kind of in two categories, one in safety and security, the other in remote monitoring. So first, they could look into a safety sensory system like a Simply Safe security system, a Ring doorbell. Waze uses motion sense to set off an alarm when no one's in the home. This can also help caregivers to realize from a distance, when the person has turned on and off the security system as they've entered and exited the home. Can tell if there are windows or doors open. These security type devices, they're really easy to install, many of which don't require the security company to come out to the house. Most of it can be done by the family members. And then if they wanted to also install a remote monitoring system, sometimes this is referred to as a passive monitoring system. These types of systems place motion sensors around frequently used areas of the home. So in Mabel's case, maybe there's one in the bedroom and in the bathroom and in the kitchen because that's where she is most of the time. These types of systems use artificial intelligence and data to track patterns in the person's daily routine. So if motion is not detected in that usual pattern, then it could alert Mabel's adult children. So for example, if Mabel's typical routine is to get up in the morning and make coffee around 9 a.m., that would require her to move from the bedroom to the kitchen. She might stop at the bathroom on the way. So the kids could set up an alert, if she hasn't made it to the kitchen, if there's been no motion in the kitchen by 9:30 in the morning, it could send an alert to the adult children, and they could call and check in on her to see if she's up and moving. So that kind of still gives her privacy. It's not cameras, but it's detecting her motion. They could also utilize video cameras if Mabel's comfortable with it, if it gets to the point where they feel like that is something that would be helpful. So they could utilize it within the home, to maybe in the living room and in the kitchen, again, maintaining her privacy in the bathroom and the bedroom, just to make sure that they can see if she's up and about, or if she's not answering, peek into the home to see maybe if there's been a fall, something of that nature. And also video cameras can be used on the outside of the home or in the garage to provide extra security. Now, as Mabel, goes through the years, maybe her MCI develops into dementia, maybe it doesn't, but if she starts to need extra help with her environment, with her IADL's instrumental activities of daily living, there might be some additional technology that her kids want to look into and suggest to Mabel. First would be environmental controls. I've mentioned many of these things in my own house, but Mabel's kids could help install a Nest or a electronic thermostat. This helps to control the temperature to make sure that it's never too hot or too cold. That is important to the health and well-being of Mabel. Smart lights could be utilized so that the lights just turn on at a specific time of day. For example, people that have cognitive impairment, sometimes at dusk, they can start to have some dementia-related behaviors of agitation or confusion. So having those smart lights turn on and create kind of a warm, well-lit environment in the afternoons could help her to stay calm and to be less confused in her environment. Smart plugs, like a plug into the electrical socket, could help to ensure that appliances turn off at certain times. That picture in the middle on the right, you can see that there's a smart plug that the coffee maker is plugged into. And so often those smart plugs can show you how long the appliance has been on, and you can remotely turn it off from a smartphone. So that could be helpful, especially if Mabel accidentally leaves the stove on once. Maybe a smart plug could be utilized at the stove going forward, and the kids could kind of check in on it regularly or set an alert if it's on for an extended period of time. They could also look into smart shades that could be raised and lowered, again, maybe at dusk to help prevent any agitation in the afternoon or for security purposes, closing the shades at night. That might be something Mabel would forget to do, but possibly remote, the kids could turn down the shades for her. Also, I've mentioned, the appliances already, but also there are things like smart sprinklers. So when we think of someone living in their home for an extended period of time, the lawn and the lawn care might become overwhelming or daunting. Now there are smart sprinkler systems even to help a person know when they need to water or if they could skip a day of watering. So that could be something else. And then when it comes to IADLs, the robot vacuums like the Roomba and the D-Bot could help Mabel keep her environment tidy, but also prevent her from having to lean over a vacuum cleaner, to push a vacuum cleaner. And they also make this type of device for lawns now, so possibly even looking into that for lawn care as well. So another IAVL technology that could be utilized in this situation is an automatic pill dispenser. Pardon me, I'm going to take a sip of water quick. If Mabel's starting to have a little bit of trouble remembering to take her medication, an automatic pill dispenser could be helpful to her in providing those reminders. Next case study we have here is Jay. Jay is wheelchair bound and lives alone. He has many home modifications that allows him to still live independently, and he has home instead services to help him during the day. His home does not have one of those keypads on the garage that sometimes can be utilized to go in and out of the house. And it really does take Jay quite some time to get to the door. So instead of distributing keys to all of the professional caregivers, his family wants an alternative solution and wants some added security for Jay, especially at the front door when people ring the doorbell. So let's think through what kind of technology could be implemented in this situation. So they could look into touchscreen locks for Jay. They could create codes. So you can see here on the picture, it's a touchscreen lock replaces the deadbolt. It's pretty easy to install. And then codes can be created to allow people entry. And so each of the caregivers that work with Jay could get their very own unique code to enter the house, so then the children can monitor, who has come into the home. Maybe if there is a cleaning individual that's coming to the home, they get their own separate code, again, for added security. And that way, if any of the services stop, they can disable those codes and keep Jay safe. They could also look into smart locks. I have one of these on my front door. It's the picture in the top right corner. Again, it replaces the deadbolt, but the door can be open and closed from anywhere with the touch of a button. So I know when I go for a walk in the evening, instead of taking a house key, I just have to have my cell phone on me, and I can lock my front door right with my phone, go for my walk, and unlock it when I come back. So in Jay's situation, this might not be as ideal because his adult children would have to, let them in with the lock, or if Jay had a smartphone, though, he could control who to open and close the door for. And then a video doorbell could be really helpful in Jay's situation. If he has a smartphone, he can look on the video feed to see who has just rang the doorbell, and also his kids could have access to that as well. And in the case of the caregivers, they could ring the doorbell so that he can see that they're there, and then Jay can give a verbal confirmation through the app on his smartphone. Yes, you can enter, and then the caregiver could use that touchscreen lock to let themselves in. So again, trying to think through some of these situations we commonly see amongst the aging population and how we can use quick, easy technology, not overly complicated, to create some unique solutions. And then we have one more case study here, and it's Kathy. Kathy and her husband live in a ranch home, and there's no bathroom in the master bedroom. Kathy has to get up in the night to use the restroom. She also has to navigate around the bed because she sleeps on the side of the bed farthest from the door, and then she has to walk down the hall from her bedroom to get to the bathroom. And she has a hard time seeing at night, especially seeing where she's going, and she doesn't want to turn the lights on because she doesn't want to wake up her husband. And lately she's been bumping into furniture, which has caused bruising and a few skin tears. She's had one fall at night and a few near falls where she almost falls but catches herself on some furniture. So in addition to making sure that the pathway is free of clutter from her bedroom to the bathroom, what are some other ways we could utilize some technology in the home to help Kathy at night? So there's a couple things we could suggest to Kathy and her family. Kathy could install some inexpensive pathway lighting that could be illuminated by the touch of a button. And that button could be placed at Kathy's bedside so that she could just touch that button, and then you can see here how there's some pathway lighting in those bottom couple of photos that light the way for Kathy to easily get to the bathroom without putting too much light out there that it's going to wake up her husband, but enough light to help her properly see her way to the restroom. Another one is to install motion-sensored night lights. Those are really easy. They can be plugged in to an outlet, maybe one in the bedroom that lights up when she gets out of bed, one in the hallway when she reaches there, and then one in the bathroom to help, again, light her way. Then there are also motion-sensored light bulbs that you can see in the top of the slide here, where the motion detector is set up that relates to the light bulb overhead. That could also help to light the way. Again, these lighting options range in price, but there are a lot of options there to possibly help Kathy as she hopefully safely navigates to the bathroom and reduces her risk of falls. So all of these examples that I provided today are ways that we can create a tech-enabled home to help restore and maintain dignity, independence, and safety in the home of an aging adult. These types of technology can also help to reduce that burden on the formal and informal caregivers to help, again, reinforce independence. And I recognize that all of these solutions are not the end-all, be-all. Everyone's situation is very different. All the people that we work with in the aging field, they have unique needs. One of the many reasons that I love working in this industry, everyone is so unique. But there are some technology solutions that we could suggest if the person is open to it. I also recognize that a lot of these devices require Wi-Fi or require a smartphone. And so those are other considerations too. So not all of this technology will make sense for all aging adults, but again, we can kind of customize options for the people that we're working with to help maybe enhance their independence and help them keep that sense of control that we talked about earlier. Maybe it's helping them stay connected to those that are important in their lives. And maybe it also helps, them maintain their ability to contribute to the world, to contribute to society. So again, we need to be thoughtful when we make these suggestions for technology, but at the same time, a lot of these are easily accessible and a lot of times affordable options. And again, they're not that high-tech crazy home that you see in the movies. We can have some simple technology solutions that we can suggest to those that we work with. Earlier, I mentioned OATS, the Older Adult Technology Services Organization. If you just search that term on Google, you'll come up with their website. If you also download the slides, I believe that Leanne said that they were available to you under the resource tab here on this webinar platform. If you download the slides, those pink links hyperlink, or those pink lines hyperlink to these websites. But OATS and then AARP has some great online training and tips for the adoption of technology. So those are the resources that I have for you today. I really appreciate you joining me for listening. There's a lot happening in this technology space, and so I'm sure I didn't touch on absolutely everything that I could have, but in an hour's time, I hope I've broadened your idea of what a tech-enabled home might look like and how you can make some simple suggestions to those that you work with. So with that, I will open up for questions and turn it back to you, Leanne.
Thank you so much, Lakelyn. I, too, am a big fan of some of these smart home devices, including the Roomba. It's a lifesaver and a time saver.
Absolutely.
A couple of questions have come in. First, could you review the article title and author that you mentioned from the journal earlier?
Yes, absolutely. So it was the Certified Senior Advisor Journal, CSA, and the author was Wesley Cheng, and it's CHENG, and the title is How Technologies Help Support a Meaningful Life for Older Adults. Again, a great article. Wesley actually emailed it to me in a PDF form, so I'm sure if you visit the Certified Senior Advisor website, you can find the latest edition of their journal and find that article there.
Great, thank you. Another question, do you have any suggestions for technology for the visually impaired?
That is a great question. You know, that is, if I do this presentation again, I thank you for asking that question because I'm realizing I didn't include many options for that. So I will add that to this webinar or this PowerPoint deck for the future. But I think that there are some great options available for the visually impaired. And a lot of it can be kind of a voice, so like a phone that, you know, if somebody calls, you know, usually we look at the caller ID, but if you're visually impaired, you might not be able to see that. And so there are some devices that will audibly say who is calling. There are some great, you know, tools out there for those that are vision impaired that are also not necessarily technology related. We have a low vision center here in our community that has some great solutions. Things, even just, you know, colored buttons that you can put in the kitchen on, you know, the microwave or on the stove to help a person, you know, navigate what is the on-off button. Again, those are not necessarily technology related at all, but there's a lot of great, simple things that you can do from that perspective. And, you know, Home Instead, we recently had a public education campaign around the aging senses. And I believe, I'm going to look it up here quick so I don't misguide you, but I actually created a video where I visited that low vision center and I talked through some of their tips and suggestions for low vision. So if you bear with me for just a moment, I'm going to make sure that this website is working.
And while you're doing that, I just wanted to note what an attendee from the Hadley Institute for the Blind and Visually Impaired, they are recommending www.hadley.edu, HADLEY.edu, as a good resource.
Thank you. I love when people share resources on here because we all learn from each other. And yes, the Aging Senses website does still work. So if you go to agingsenses.com, I have a video on there. If you scroll through, there are some tips to maintain independence with vision loss. So I hope that you will check that out. But that's a great question, and I'm going to dig deeper into that from a especially technology perspective, because I've looked into a lot of you know, low vision resources that aren't necessarily tech-based, but I know that there's more out there that exist. And then thank you to that participant that shared hadley.edu, that website. I will check that out as well.
Yeah, and another participant noted that she uses Alexa and Blink cameras voice enabled for her uncle with Parkinson's. So just a couple.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, a couple other suggestions. And one more just came in, the Braille Institute, BRAILLE Institute.org. Lots of folks out there with good knowledge.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing, everyone.
Yeah, and we are just about at time, so I would like to wrap us up. If you'd like to claim continuing education units for today's webinar, you will receive a follow-up email by the end of today, and that will have a link in it to the CEU application. That email will also have a link to today's slides. And remember that you have 60 days to claim CEUs for today's webinar, and it'll take about a month from the date of your submission in order for us to process and issue your credit. With that, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Lakelyn, for another fantastic presentation, and we look forward to seeing you all at the next Home Instead series webinar.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.